What's going on, everybody?
Hey guys,
My name is Brian, and this is my husband,
Alec.
and we're Meetthemazelins.
Yes, so on the couch again. So welcome back to another episode of Couch Conversations. This one I think is a very special one because it's really intended to be a story time about a very significant time in Brian's life. And just to give you a little bit of a backstory, we had asked our YouTube family to send us some questions the other day for a Q&A. I can't even say one of the questions. One of the set of questions from Shirley was about Brian's journey with Crohn's disease. And she had a whole lot of questions over the course of a couple of videos that we just thought would be so insightful. One, to be able to share that period in Brian's life, and two, for it to potentially be a resource for people who are either battling with Crohn's disease or other IBD diseases, and even for the community around them to know how it is that they can best support.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you ready for us to dive into your life?
I guess so.
Yeah? Okay, so even though it's a story time, I am gonna be interviewing Brian. So, you ready for the hot seat?
I guess I have no choice.
Alrighty. So I know in your early 20s that you had a major stint in the hospital. Can you bring us back to that time and kind of let us know what the events were that led up to you actually being admitted?
Okay. So when I was 20, I want to say maybe 25 or 26. Mm-hmm. I think it was 25 is when I was admitted for 9 days. It was in February, and then I was released, and I ended up having to go right back like maybe 3 days later because I had to have a bowel resection. But the events that led up to the symptoms started maybe when I was 22. Mm-hmm. So 22, I remember being hospitalized for 3 days because I had a stomach issue that nobody knew what it was. Mm-hmm. It caused diarrhea, severe pain. I couldn't hold anything down or up. Mm-hmm. So
it was coming from both ends?
From both ends, yeah. Mm. So I ended up staying in the hospital for 3 days. They released me, and I never had the issue again.
So there were between 22 and 25 no real symptoms in between?
To me, no, because it just felt like if I ate something, I would have a stomach ache. Mm-hmm. But in actuality, that was my Crohn's telling me like, hey, this is what's going on. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I really would have had no idea because it wasn't as severe as it was that time I was hospitalized. Mm-hmm. So,
No, so I know you said that you're hospitalized twice at 25. So the first time was for 9 days, and then you went back 3 days later. So I mean, 9 days in the hospital is no joke. Yeah. So is that when you actually got the diagnosis?
Yes. So I got the diagnosis within those 9 days. 3 days later is when I had an episode, like a severe episode.
So after you came out, went back home,
went back to work, and 3 days later, I had polio tropical, and I don't know what was in it, but it triggered a flare-up, and I had to call the ambulance. Well, I didn't call the ambulance. Vic called the ambulance because we were roommates at the time. He called the ambulance. They ended up taking me to the hospital, and that's when they admitted me, and I had to have emergency surgery. They said 8 inches of my intestine was like rubber, so nothing could pass through it. So within those 3 days, they actually told me I had an appointment with my GI, and he told me that I couldn't eat anything green, which I didn't understand how I was supposed to survive because you're supposed to eat vegetables and like roughage, lettuce, all of that. You're supposed to survive off of like vegetables. I could not eat any of it, and then 3 days later, I had that surgery.
Okay. So when you had the surgery, because I know that you've told me in the past before that you had like some rough days in the hospital. Was that your 9-day stint or was that post-surgery?
It was post-surgery. The 9 days was tough in the beginning, but around day 4 or 5, I was fine. But I had an infection that they did not know where it was coming from. So that's why they kept me there. They had to keep my temperature down. They had to make sure my numbers were looking good. something to that effect. So they wouldn't let me go for those 9 days. But for the first 4, it was bad. Everything after was easy to me.
Okay. So when would you say was the actual near-death experience?
That when Vic called the hospital, when he called the ambulance. I woke up that morning, maybe like around 3 o'clock in the morning, and I tried to go to the bathroom, but I could not stand up straight. The pain was so, I couldn't even extend my right leg. So I was hunched over, I couldn't extend my right leg, but I somehow made it to the bathroom and I could not pee. I couldn't do anything.
Oh, wow.
And I had to go so bad. Like I had to use the bathroom, I had to pee. So imagine having to pee, like you just drank a gallon of water and you have to go, but you can't. It gets painful. So I ended up having to crawl into Vic's room, and I told him to call 911. He didn't ask any questions. He said, okay. Like he just didn't question me. He just did it. And I laid on the floor in my room until the people got there, until the ambulance got there. They ended up coming upstairs because we lived on a two-story house. They had to come upstairs, put me on a stretcher, and carry me down the stairs.
That's crazy though, because from what I'm hearing, it's not only were you having difficulty like passing anything, but you're like experiencing some level of paralysis, and I'm assuming that you're feeling extremely weak too. So you probably couldn't even call out to Vic, which is why
I had to
crawl. No, that's a whole lot.
Yeah,
that's a whole lot.
So what it was, I had an abscess as well, growing in my stomach, which was the infection from 9 days ago that they didn't know like where it was coming from. It was an abscess. So it started to poison my blood and my body was shutting down. So they gave me in an ambulance, and that was the most painful ride I had ever experienced, because every bump I felt it. And it's like in my neighborhood, it was cobblestone road.
Oh no, that's the worst.
So it's cobblestone road, and then there's like speed bumps on top of it. So imagine I'm crying, like bawling my eyes out. Yeah, and we ended up making it. They tried to do some procedure. Gosh, I'm not gonna tell a hospital that this happened at. But once I got there, they tried to do a procedure where I guess they thought it would fix it. I ended up waking up during the procedure.
Oh, wow.
I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel anything.
That's a nightmare.
But I woke up, and I remember the doctors stopping what they were doing, and they said, he's up. And then immediately I was back out. I woke up in the waiting room, and they told me they couldn't help me. So they had to send me to another hospital.
Jeez.
Yeah. So by this time, like, it is so crazy how things work, because the night before all of this happened, BJ's his caretaker, she became really cool. So she wanted to watch him for the weekend. So she ended up taking him, and that episode happened like 5 hours later. So my mom ended up having to drive up here to get him, but she kept him for a little while. I think my mom took him to Keisha, his mom. And then she came to the hospital, and she stayed with me until I had the surgery.
Yeah, that's divine intervention right there.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works.
So when you went back to the hospital for the surgery now, I mean, once you're actually able to get it done, how many more days were you in the hospital for, and how quickly did you start feeling, did you even feel better after the surgery happened?
So no, because they had split me open. So like I have a scar from above my belly button down to my pubes, as you know. But yeah, so that it was a different kind of pain. The Crohn's pain was I didn't, if I had it, I didn't know. Yeah. Because everything else hurts so much more. Because you use your abdomen for so much, and you don't even realize it. You really don't understand.
Like where your core strength is.
Yeah.
So
even something as simple as getting out of the bed is like painful.
Yeah, I know what that's like. Just the difficulty getting out of bed, because I've had issues with like my back muscles, and you realize that when just one of those things is damaged, like coming off the bed, even a little shuffle is hard. So I can only imagine the entire midsection from the front. Yeah, so I can imagine that that's crazy. And I mean, at this point, now they've given you the Crohn's diagnosis from your first stint in the hospital. Can you elaborate a little bit on what Crohn's is?
So Crohn's, what I know it to be is an inflammation of like your gastrointestinal tract. So it can go from your intestines all the way down to your rectum. Getting that far to your rectum it doesn't happen as much, but mine has gotten that far. So it causes it to inflame, and then nothing can pass, and it creates extreme pain. Once I guess if the baggage is too much, it can rupture your intestines, and it could what's it called? I want to say the feces can poison you, like it can kill you.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten to that point. I was almost there though.
Well, knock on wood that it doesn't get any worse.
Yeah.
But interesting fact is that 780,000 Americans are said to be diagnosed with Crohn's disease on varying levels. And the thing about Crohn's is that there is no cure for it. So it really is one of those diseases where you can just treat and look into pain management. And it looks a little bit different for everybody. So where your doctor would have had to tell you the things that you can or cannot eat, for everybody, the triggers might be different. It changes. Mine changes maybe every other month. What would have affected me today may not affect me tomorrow. So it's something you really can't put your finger on. You just it's trial and error. So it looks a little bit different for everybody. It's also a very tough disease for doctors to identify straight out of the gate. So once it is that you start picking up any of these signs, then it's just good to get checkups. And that's why getting regular checkups, regardless of how healthy we think that we are, especially when it is that you're getting older, 20s onwards, is very important, because the most affected group for people diagnosed with Crohn's are in that 20s to 30s age bracket. You do have where it is that it might show up earlier for some people, because in the case of Shirley's son, he was diagnosed at 13.
So to be honest, I may have had Crohn's my entire life, when I was much younger, because I've always had gastrointestinal issues. They wrote it off as gastritis when I was like maybe 9 or 10. But as far back as I can remember, I've always had gastro issues.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things that you just have to look out for. And if it is that you hear anybody complaining about those kinds of issues, if it is that they've gotten food poisoning one too many times, then that might be an early sign that they need to get checked out. All right, so now you're out of the hospital, you've healed everything. What did life look like for you directly coming out of that period? And by life, like, did it change your everyday life? What were some of the major changes that you experienced?
So for the first 3 months, my life was definitely different. I was practically handicapped because it took me about 3 months to heal, and I couldn't go to work. I needed help doing everything, bathing, and imagine BJ was 2 or 3 at the time, so I needed help with him. My life was not the same for at least the first 3 months.
Who were you staying with in that recovery period?
I had 2 roommates. We were really good friends. It was Vic and then somebody else that is out of the picture we don't speak to anymore. But we were in a 4-bedroom house, so we had more than enough space. So they helped me out a lot.
Wow. That's huge though.
Once I went back to work, it was kind of like business as usual. Like, I didn't have the Crohn's pain. They had already cut out those that bad section of my intestines. However, there was almost like little to no wait time when I had to go to the bathroom.
So once you felt it, you just had to.
I had to go.
Find it immediately.
I had to go. There was no time frame. Like I had once I felt it, I had to go to the bathroom.
Okay. Outside of that, did it affect like any other things that you would eat? Did you have to change your diet any at all?
I did change my diet. I stuck to things that were safe to me, that didn't have much grease. It wasn't red like tomatoes or anything like that. So I started eating sandwiches because it was the safest thing.
So is that the love of turkey sandwiches
Yes,
now? That's where it stems from?
Right. Because I know my body can handle that. That's one thing I have never had an issue with. But me eating so much bread caused me to become pre-diabetic. So I had to find another way around that, which I think once they told me to stop eating the bread, I had to supplement with like vegetables and other things, and that kind of kick-started the Crohn's a little bit.
So you started having flare-ups again now because you ended up having to go back to the green things that you were meant to avoid.
Right. His main focus for me avoiding the green was because my intestines was like leather. So he thought since they cut it out, it would probably be better, but it wasn't. Even to this day, eating salads and stuff like that, I still sometimes feel like I am going to the bathroom and I'm like, it's
because
like
it's the fibrous foods.
Yeah.
I think that really is the issue for many people who suffer from any kind of disease that falls in that line of inflammatory bowel disease. That's one of those things that they always tell you to watch out for. Yeah, so I can see where it is that navigating any kind of diet is like really tough. Like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly.
Okay, I get that. So I know you talked a little bit about the people that helped you through that journey, those two people that you were living with. Did you having Crohn's any at all affect any of your friendships or your dating life or even your relationships?
Well, initially, when this happened, I was dating a girl, and she actually broke up with me after I got out of the hospital.
No, that is savage. That is savage.
Yeah, she would come. I don't think she understood the severity of my situation, although they told her several times that I'd almost died. Whatever, we weren't meant to be together anyway. Maybe that was just her out. But immediately after, I couldn't go places. Like I didn't want to. Let's say that. I didn't want to go to the movies. I didn't want to go walk a mall. I didn't want to do anything because I didn't know when I was going to have to use the bathroom. I didn't know. I was in pain. I had lost, I want to say maybe 50 pounds in like a month and a half time span. So none of my clothes fit. I don't feel like I look good. Like I look
Sick.
gone. Yes, I look sick. So it's like I don't want to do anything, and she could not take it, and she left.
Wow. That's tough.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It was messed up, but it
I mean, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah,
and I mean, to be quite honest, like if somebody can't manage that, then
that's where my head was. Like that's what you do. So it was easier to walk away.
Yeah, so it's really for the best. What about with your friendships? Because I'm sure like you not being able to go out, it didn't just apply to dating, but it also applied to you hanging out with your friends too.
Yeah. So one thing about that, I've been blessed with pretty good people around me. And it didn't change anything with my friendships. It may have actually brought us closer, because Vic, when I tell you, he was so supportive in that entire situation. Like, when I know he used to get frustrated, because if we were driving from here to Publix and I had to make a stop at the bathroom, he would stop and not question it. If we're walking IKEA or the mall and I'm like, you gotta take me to the bathroom, he never gave me a hard time or made me feel like I was aggravating him. You know what I mean? All of my friends, because I didn't want to go out, they would come to the house and they would see me there. Nothing changed. It's just they were coming to see me in the house.
Okay, well that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we all need a Vic in our lives.
Yeah. He's a good guy, man.
And for those of you who still follow it or have been following our channel for a long time, you'd realize that Vic is still very much in the picture.
Yeah.
He is, if there is to say like somebody who you know is always gonna be there, then Vic is definitely that person.
Yeah.
So what has it looked like for you with relationships? I know in between the time that you would have had that surgery, of course, you would have been at a certain point a single father. So that in itself was one major thing to deal with. But in between, like 25 and us actually meeting, I know that your dating history wasn't extremely extensive.
Right.
But did it affect any of your relationships? What did relationships look like having to deal with your Crohn's diagnosis?
It didn't affect my relationships at all. Partially due in part to the fact that I had went into remission. I want to say maybe 6 to 7 months after leaving the hospital, I started to do Herbalife. And Herbalife actually got me on the right track because it was shakes and like food. It wasn't anything major. So I lost a lot of weight because I ended up eating sandwiches 3 times a day, every day. I ended up gaining a lot of weight. So getting on Herbalife actually allowed me to lose all of that weight and some. So I guess it made me more desirable because I kept somebody in my face. So, you know, but it was never anything serious. So yeah, it didn't have a negative impact.
Okay, so it wasn't the Crohn's, it was just more the pressures of trying to hold down your job and trying to take care of your child at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. I feel like if we were to like lead into when our relationship would have started now, it was one of those things that you made sure to get out very early. And to be quite honest, I had never heard about Crohn's before you told me about it. So when you told me about Crohn's, it's something that I had to research and look up. And I know you'd have told me like a few of the things that I could expect when it is that we would have started dating. And can you tell me like how that felt like actually meeting? Because we started out as long distance, and then of course the first time that we met each other in person, we were basically staying together. We were sleeping together, everything for a week.
So how did it work out?
How did it work out for you? And like was that like a testing ground to say, yeah, this one can ride with me through the journey?
Yeah. I mean, it didn't work in my favor, I'll say that. So this is a funny story time. It take Alec to tell it because he is more animated than I am, but I had cut out pork is something I had cut out minus bacon, but I had cut out pork altogether. No pork chops, no roast pork, nothing. The first thing that I think we ate was,
I mean, I can't even say it because I feel like when you came to visit Jamaica or visit me in Jamaica, I was just throwing everything Jamaican at you. And looking back now, jerk is just all spices. So even if it's not spicy, it's all spices. So that's the first thing. Then you haven't eaten pork in a long time, and the first place I wanted to bring you was a jerk pit. And you had to have the chicken, you had to have the sausage, and you had to have the pork. And then it probably was no better that my mother ended the trip giving you crispy skin roast pork.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, so I almost died that trip, but I didn't tell them.
And when he says almost died, like he didn't really almost die.
No, but it didn't work in my favor because I immediately had a flare up after eating the pork. But Alec was a trooper, man. Alec was a trooper. Cause this is so embarrassing.
I mean, you don't have to go into great detail, but I mean, just from the details that we've shared with you, it being an inflammatory bowel disease, like from you hear bowel, it just means that there was a lot of movements going on and
a lot of noise.
And it was just like as he said, like whenever he said he needed to go home, he wouldn't necessarily give a reason, or he would just ask like, how soon are we going home? And to me, it took a little time, but that's when I had to like kind of pick up, oh, this is what he's trying to say, like let's get back to the apartment. Yeah. So it to me though, it was so great to see somebody so raw and vulnerable at the same time. And even though we had only known each other for a month, I think that it really gave me such a great understanding of who you are. I think early on when people are dating, they tend to have a wall up and take some time to really be open with the other person. And I think that was a platform for us to really just be so comfortable and honest with each other from the beginning. Yeah, so everything has its reason. I am still here today. So clearly it wasn't that bad, right? So fast forward now, a couple of years later, really 2 years later. And you know, funny enough, it really is like exactly 2 years later after we met. Because we met in that first week of August. It was around Jamaica's independence. And then we got married July 8th. And he ended up in the hospital August 8th. So I want to use that now to kind of have you explain what are some of the triggers, because now you've already been diagnosed, you went into remission, you've had flare-ups, but some flare-ups are worse than others. And this would have been my first time experiencing in person what a terrible flare-up of yours was like.
So some of the triggers, stress, for sure. And that wedding, planning it in 6 weeks, stressed the hell out of me. I mean, we did it, we made it happen, but also the stress of the immigration process took a toll on me, hands down. I think once everything was over, it was kind of like the adrenaline finally subsided. And my body was like,
that's when your body really feels it. When the adrenaline leaves your body.
And a month later, it landed me in the hospital.
And I mean, even outside of that, like right after our wedding, I also had not been working for a certain period of time, and that's when things got really real. Like, how is it that we're gonna adjust now? Me still not being able to legally work, and money became an issue very quickly after too. So I'm sure that didn't help. So then you ended up in the hospital again. And what was this experience like? Like in terms of all your experiences so far, where would you say this experience fell on the scale?
The August 8th experience?
Yes.
That one was on the lower end.
That's on the lower end.
Yeah. Because I kind of know how to manage it now. I feel it coming for weeks in advance.
So you can anticipate it.
Yeah. I just don't know how bad it's going to be once it finally
hits.
Yeah. But I can feel certain things starting to happen, and I'm like, okay, I need to pull back on this or do more of this to try to counteract what's coming, because I can feel it.
And I mean, for me, it was a very scary experience because he's always told me about the difficulties and some of the symptoms that he faces on a regular basis. But to see all of it culminate in an actual admission into the hospital is an extremely scary experience. And it really put the vow that you make of, for better or worse, into a real perspective, because these are the kinds of things that can happen to any of us at any point during a marriage relationship. And it really had me like, I remember at that time I wasn't comfortable driving here, and I had to be going back and forth between the hospital, making sure that he got food. And
Mommy said it though. Mommy was like, make him drive. She's like, I knew he's going to be in a position where he had to do it, and he could do it. And you did it.
I did. All right, well, thank you for sharing that experience. And just to kind of wrap this up, I want to get from you, what are some of the ways that people close to you can support someone who is suffering from Crohn's or another IBD disease?
So for one, be understanding. Please be understanding. If they have to make bathroom stops, don't make them feel like a burden. Also, don't shame them. Please don't shame them about anything that is going on with it, whether it be sounds, smells, even grimaces on their face. Like, you can always check and make sure that they're okay, but just don't poke fun, because it's not funny. And also, don't be a bad influence. You know, like, I like bad things, like things that I know I should not eat. If you know that that person can't eat it, don't ask them if they want some. Try to be an ally. Try not to, like, just be a bad influence, you know, because you don't want to see anybody in the hospital. Yeah, that's what I got.
I mean, what I would add to that is, yeah, truly, it's just that, one, do your research. As a partner, as somebody in that circle, do your research to figure out the kinds of things and triggers that that person may have. Ask the difficult questions. If there's something you feel like you don't understand, make sure to ask, because I think that's the best way to be able to support somebody. As he said, like, just be understanding. If it is that they ask you not to use a certain ingredient, there's a reason, you know? So just be understanding.
If they ask you to take them home, or
no questions asked, drop everything and
take them.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sitting on my couch and going
your
through
couch. Okay.
and going through this interview. We really hope that this is something that can help so many people out there, whether it is that they're suffering from an IBD, or if it is that they just happen to know somebody that is. We really hope that this is a resource that helps everybody, and that for those of you who are Maz Gang members from when, that you really do understand this side of Brian's life a little bit more.
Yes.
So if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Please comment down below and ask us any questions that you feel like we may not have addressed. Please share the video with somebody else who you think that this might be able to help out. And if you haven't already, do what?
Subscribe.
All right, guys. See you next time.